Hey everybody, welcome to Cinema Gulp. It's the top 5 series that we've been doing, and this time we're doing top 5 R-rated science fiction movies. Yes. Oh, and with our panel today, we've got Bobak, who's been on so many times and for so long has been just doing the long form stuff with me. We're going to do a House of the Dragon series this summer, so it's going to be great. Welcome. It's so good to have you back on camera, sir.
It's amazing to be here.
But Captain Finity is here once again. You guys know him. He's been on the show a bunch of times. He joined us for our first ever live stream, Thirsty Thursday. It was fun. Welcome aboard once again, Captain.
Thank you so much for another top 5.
These are the best. This one is a little bit trickier because it can fall into so many different areas. So we're going to get started here, and we're going to let Bobak do the honors of going first for his number 5 favorite R-rated sci-fi movie of all time. Bobak, take it away, sir.
Well, I have to start by saying that this, for me, is the top 5 R-rated sci-fi movies other than Aliens, Predator, Terminator 2. Okay, so I'm taking those and I'm putting them over here, and I'm saying, aside from those 3 movies,
you're not the only one.
yeah. I kind of feel like that has to really be the extended length title. Like, put an asterisk on it, you know. And I'm gonna start out number 5. My new favorite movie, Poor Things, featuring Emma Stone, Mark Ruffalo, William Dafoe, and many others. And I just thought this was refreshing, smart, amazing to look at. And what I love about it in a science fiction way is this is not Dr. Frankenstein creating his creature. This is someone else who takes dead body parts and puts it together. And I love it because it's like this type of monster or this type of science. And by the way, Frankenstein was the first science fiction story, you know. This type of thing, it's like saying not every vampire story is about Dracula. There's other vampires out there. And no one's actually kind of done that with the reanimation thing. I mean, zombies maybe, but not really, you know, taking like a corpse and bringing it to life. And so this is a brand new story. And at first I really thought it was just going to be like a rehash of, you know, like Frankenstein. And it wasn't. It was really amazing. And I love, you know, Emma Stone did such a great performance, and Willem Dafoe as well. But, you know, Emma Stone just really going the whole, like we talk about an actor has range. And it's, you know, like she does the age range from an infant to a grown woman, you know, and like you're watching her develop. And it's awesome, you know, like, you know, John, like as a dad watching your kid grow up, it's like you recognize those, you know, like learning how to pee and, you know, whatever, like discovering yourself or whatever. And, you know, my wife was watching it and she just couldn't stop watching it because she really got involved, you know, with this character exploring what it is to be alive. And, you know, it was really, really smart story. Visually, it just looked amazing. Ben, I think you said it was, what was it called? German
Expressionist. Yeah.
German Expressionist.
It's
style.
very, very, very stylized after German Expressionist. Yeah.
I mean, every set was like this, like, you know, steampunk fairy tale, really, I mean, just the bright colors and the costumes. At first, it felt like it was rooted in like some kind of Victorian, you know, society with the costumes and the, you know, the way that people acted and the architecture and stuff. But after, you know, a while, the movie scene by scene, it becomes more fantastic in the architecture of the sets and just the costume design and stuff, you know. And it was like a really refreshing, you know, wonderful fairy tale, but yet, you know, reanimated corpse, and really kind of exploring it. I really love how Willem Dafoe, his character Dr. Godwin Baxter, God, you know, is like coaching Emma Stone and speaking to her at whatever, you know, intellectual level she's at as she's like, you know, growing up, and actually telling her more about her character's origins and stuff like that. And you know, I just really felt like Willem Dafoe did a good job. And one of the best things about the movie is that I had no idea what to expect. I really don't like, you know, as soon as I recognize the formula that a storyteller is using, I say, oh, okay, I start predicting, oh, this is what's going to happen next because I know the formula. And so therefore, here's the next twist that is part of this formula. Or, you know, sometimes they'll be bold and have 2 or 3 formulas and twist them, you know. But like with this, I really thought that at the end, they were going to reanimate, you know, William Dafoe's, the dad character, God, you know, in a younger body. And they just didn't do it, you know, like it was a really nice ending. I love those endings where like the antagonist or the protagonist like dies at the end, you know, and like doesn't like, you know, make it somehow, even though he really shouldn't have, you know. And it felt like, as fantastic as it was, it just felt like a real human story at the end of it. And like, I really like believed the characters, I felt for them, and it was just quirky and funny the whole way along, you know. So I really enjoyed Poor Things, and it's cross genre, but I feel like Frankenstein was science fiction. I'm throwing it out there, you know, science fiction. So anyway, that's my number 5, Poor Things.
It's very funny too.
It is hilarious.
If it wasn't comedy, if Slaughterhouse hadn't come out in 2023, Poor Things' comedy comes so much from the great editor that edited that movie. Like, because when you can do like a comedic beat that drops from an edit, then it can really my theater was erupting in laughter so many times. And you know, you said it's kind of like Frankenstein. It's actually like Frankenhooker. Take it away, Cap.
Well, what a great segue. If you like a dead protagonist at the end of the story, then you're going to love Donnie Darko. That is my pick number 5.
I knew it was going to be in there somewhere.
It had to be in there, one of Scotty's favourites, because how can anyone not love that movie? So I don't know, is it logically good or is it emotionally good? Because it just, by the end of the movie, it just really packs an emotional punch. Some people say it's a time travel film. There's no time travel. There's a parallel universe, or indeed a tangent universe. There's your science fiction element. But I would say no time travel. They talk about time travel, but nobody time travels. But they're in a tangent universe, and that's not very good. So now you've got a problem and a movie.
You can
does
say
the plane engine time travel?
Well, that's the key. It's like with a lot of films. How does the plot start? How does the plane engine fall in the first place to create the tangent universe? So that's like a contrivance that kickstarts the plot. We don't know how or why the plane engine appears along with the tangent universe in the first place.
I still love the movie. I think it's a great sci-fi pick, but it's one that I've never fully been able to wrap my head around. What are the real conclusions of that film? But you don't need to. It's fine to be ambiguous, and I still love it.
That's a matter of taste. I myself, which then puts me against other people, so it is taste, but I hate ambiguous films. Tarantino, what's in the briefcase? Or you tell me it's your film, Tarantino. You tell me what's in the fucking briefcase. Anyway, so like you, I didn't get it at the end. I watched it 17 times. I've got the director's cut. I've read all the articles. Nothing. I can't tell you what the video is really about, but it does seem like they're in a tangent universe because of the plane engine, and then they have to. Everything just has to act out the way it is. I'm about to interrupt myself. What you don't get often with parallel universe stories is the idea of a kind of superior and inferior tangent universe. So the idea that this tangent universe is very unstable and it will fuck out and disappear inevitably.
This is another telling of Frankenstein that we all love.
Oh,
Mr. RoboCop. So OCP took some dead body parts and put them together. Tried to make Super Cop. Let's just go like that. You don't need to see my face. See awesome RoboCop. So yeah, I'm going with this as my science fiction action movie. I don't have all of my movies separated by specific genres, but that is kind of my approach to this. I also have to start off like Bobak did, saying the movies I'm going to share with you today are science fiction movies that I love that are not directed by James Cameron, because Aliens, Terminator, and Terminator 2 are my top 3 favorite movies. So that would just take half of this list out if I just talk about those, and I've talked about them to death. Alien is another movie I love. So basically my whole list would just be taken up by Alien and Terminator movies. So I'm going to talk about some other choices here, which RoboCop is one of those classic 80s sci-fi action. It's got all kinds of genres. It's got wonderful social commentary, and all of that social commentary plays into a very humorous side to this movie. So you kind of get it all. You get some great humor, you get some great action, you get a sci-fi concept, which I love that you pointed out that Frankenstein is the first sci-fi story, or at least I saw it as at least science fiction in kind of like a medical science fiction. I don't know if someone was talking about aliens visiting Earth before the writing of Frankenstein. Probably not. It probably really is truly the first science fiction story, but you know, even back then, any story was kind of science fiction if it was outside of the realm of reality at that time. So, but Frankenstein's one of my favorite, you know, classic movies, and that story, just, you can tell that story in a lot of different ways, and this was a very original approach to that. Obviously, it earns its R rating. That's what we're here to talk about, is R-rated science fiction movies. This movie earns that R rating. It's got some of the most memorable deaths in movies. If you're talking about, you know, towards the opening when the one guy just gets mowed down by Ed 209.
Just shoot someone's dick off in this movie.
Yeah, I mean, it earns its rating. The toxic waste melting dude is probably maybe the best death ever to hit the screen.
Yeah. Head rolling over the windshield.
Sorry.
That sounded just like him.
I know. I perfected that. Yeah.
The movie is perfectly cast. I think everyone does an amazing job in their roles. All of the villains are so memorable. But what is Clarence's real name? The actor?
Red from that.
That's what I was gonna say. Red, but that's the character name. So
I don't know.
Anyway, he's so freaking awesome.
We already know characters.
So yeah, RoboCop is all around great science fiction movie, but it's a kick-ass action movie at the same time. The effects really hold up to this day. Everything from, you know, all those amazing death scenes and squibs to creating RoboCop himself, the way his head looks when his helmet's off, it's all super, super believable. The suit looks perfectly robotic. The performance that he gives inside of it is standout. Ben, you and I have talked many times about certain movies having mean streaks, and it can sometimes turn us off from a movie. This one definitely has a mean streak, but I think it has a little bit of a what goes around comes around, so that certain people that are the antagonists that are bringing on that mean streak throughout the film, they get theirs by the end of the movie, so you can kind of live with how mean this movie can be at times. Because Murphy goes through some major shit through this movie.
I always felt that Verhoeven played it so playful that I never felt it mean-spirited, even though there's awful shit happening to people. It's such a fun popcorn experience because Verhoeven, he was just the best at that, you know, at that satirical kind of look at things. So yeah,
100%. Yeah. I mean, I could put some other Verhoeven movies on this list, but I went with this one only. But his movies are the ones that live up to the R rating. I could have filled this list out with his movies as well. Yeah, but I'm just gonna go with RoboCop. So yeah, I mean, it's obviously a dystopian future to some degree. That plays a lot into many, many different science fiction stories. But this is a unique one, and we all love RoboCop. Sequels, not as much, but the original is a classic and always will be.
Thank you for your cooperation.
Number 5 for me, Sunshine. The opening shot and voiceover just gives you immediately everything you're going to get from this movie. Our sun is dying. Man faces extinction. Beautiful opening visuals. This movie is just chocked full of gorgeous visuals. The story basically of astronauts going out on a mission because the prior mission failed. This movie is so fucking science. So science. It's about a group of people going out there to deliver a payload which is as powerful as the sun, because the sun is somehow dying and humanity's dying without the sun. And just the tension, the stress, the fear that everyone's going through on board this ship out in space, knowing that this payload, it's very unstable, it's always causing problems. If they can just get to the sun and get to where they need to be to unload this, they can save humanity. the whole movie's just filled with dread, because from the moment that the very first thing goes wrong, you kind of know that none of these people are going to live, and they know that, and they accept it. But they have to get, they'll save mankind if they get their mission done. Amazing fucking cast, man. Danny Boyle he always assembles like the greatest. Dude, this movie has got fucking. Well, I love it too that it's a mission of Asians and Americans and British. So it's got all these great character actors from all this. Cillian Murphy, Chris Evans in his absolute best performance. Rose Byrne, Michelle Yeoh, who I love so much, who just won the Oscar last year for Everything Everywhere All at Once. Benedict Wong, who I love. Mark Strong. Cliff Curtis is a fucking beast in this movie. That's a fucking cast right there. I mean, that is a cast. Every shot in this movie, from the interior shots to the exterior shots in space, I can't even describe it to you. If you haven't seen this movie, it's such an experience to watch. And I kind of stumbled into this one when it came out, not knowing much about it, but wanting to see the next Danny Boyle movie. So I saw it in the theater, and I just had never seen anything like it. And I know, like, a few years later, someone did the fucking Gravity, which is like a 3D movie, and everyone's like, "Oh, that's the most beautiful, like, stunning space movie I've ever seen." Dude, this movie eats that fucking movie's kids, man. It's so gorgeous, and the beautiful score. Like, it's one of those scores that, like, knows every, like, a good composer watches the movie on a giant screen as they're writing the music, and every single scene, the music just fits perfectly. It's paced perfectly. Like I said, I've been using the word beautiful like 100 million times, but it's just such a gorgeous looking movie. Yes, a lot of people don't call this a great sci-fi movie because the third act does kind of move itself into the horror. Something that may, some people are like, that didn't need to be there. I like it. It's fucking terrifying. Someone from the previous mission is alive and has touched the surface of the sun and says that he's seen the devil and God, and now has, like, not really certain abilities, but is just a killing machine. And it happens at the end, and you're just like, what the fuck is going on? It's a total monkey wrench to the whole rest of the plot. Yeah, I think it's brilliant, and it may not be the best Danny Boyle movie, but it's probably my favorite Danny Boyle movie. And I know that's kind of that's a little controversial because he's made so many great films, Trainspotting, Millions. He's a great filmmaker, but this movie I fucking love it. So number 5 for me, I have to go with Sunshine.
Rock
Great
and roll.
pick. Love that film.
Whenever, because he's dipped his toes into every single genre, every single one, and this was his sci-fi, and that's what I thought of it. I was sucking its dick for 5 minutes just now. So
Number 4, I'm going with Total Recall from 1990 with Arnold Schwarzenegger as Quaid.
another Verhoeven movie. There it is.
And Sharon Stone, as Laurie Quaid. I think that the friction between them really kind of drove the first, 2 parts of the story, I think. And I think, wasn't Ronnie Cox also in, he played Velos, the main bad guy, Gohagan. Wasn't he also the same actor in RoboCop?
RoboCop.
Yeah, he was Dick Jones in
Right
RoboCop.
there.
And
Yeah, right there.
And he
Yeah,
was,
right there.
Yep.
Come on, Cohagen, you got what you want. Give those people, yeah. Sorry.
Fuck them. We'll teach the others a lesson. But yeah, I mean, Total Recall. So, now I'm going to be getting a little bit more into like science and stuff. I feel like Total Recall is almost the same universe as a couple of the other films that I'm going to talk about. I won't mention them by name yet, but it's this like futuristic Earth where you've got all these cool technologies.
Take this thing out of the case and stick it up your ass.
And, traveling between planets, terraforming, which is a huge, plot line of this, but also you have the mutations, the radiation or whatever it is, the mutants with their psychic abilities. And, but the whole thing of memory and implanting memory And that's like a question or a theme that I've noticed in a couple of different, of my favorite, top 5 R-rated movies that are not Aliens, Predator, or Terminator 2, right? But this whole idea of what is reality and what makes you, it's like you have the same body, Arnold Schwarzenegger, Douglas Quaid, with different sets of memories, and suddenly he's different people, and he gets different, gets a pass on maybe what that body had done in the past, but because it had a different set of memories, it was a different person, that type of thing. And just the whole thing of questioning, who am I? Like, can I trust my memories? And so it also has this whole psychological, because if there's only a very few little clues here and there, like quick one-liners, where they let you know that no, Arnold, Douglas Quaid didn't get the memory implant. Like, all the stuff that's coming out is really actually him and what he was, doing and stuff. But they really keep you guessing, because that's just like a fleeting line, where he's supposed to get the memory implant, and he starts raving about this. They're coming to get me, and one of the assistants is like, I haven't given him the implant yet.
Listen to me. He has been going on and on about Mars. He has really been there.
Use your head, you dumb bitch. He's just acting out the secret agent portion of his ego trip.
I'm afraid that's not possible.
Why not?
Because we haven't implanted it yet.
We must have triggered something, and then that was erased or whatever. And so it was just this great thing of just trying to understand psychology, as well as taking a look at all this cool tech. And 1990, they are still making puppets and doing props. Like, the camera, all the effects are in-camera effects, where there's at least 3 different times where they must have had little prop makers and stuff, must have had so much fun making these replicas of Arnold Schwarzenegger's face and head, and then having them do these cool special effects actions. And it all was robotic, remote controlled, or there's mechanics in there, one part where his
eyes are popping out of his head.
yeah, right into the opening, where the eyes come out and the tongue comes out, and you think it's him at first, but they made those puppeteer stuff look so like him. They must have cast his face and made a mold from it or something, but this is back when you had props and special effects, and it was right before you start getting the first movies that had computer graphics and stuff. And it's a lot of fun to watch that. One of these scenes where he's sneaking in through Mars Customs, it's almost like a Miss Doubtfire scene, because he's dressed as this big woman, with a muumuu and hair curlers almost, you know what I mean? And she starts freaking out, and then the face just separates, and it's him underneath it, and then he throws it, it's a bomb, it's just
I think that's one of the first memes ever, was the 2 weeks. Before memes were memes.
2 weeks. 2 weeks. 2 weeks. 2 weeks.
So, a lot of fun to watch. I mean, nonstop action, classic. It's still 1990 is basically still 80 sensibilities. So, I kill someone, I give a one-liner.
We're married.
Consider that a divorce.
And just all this stuff. It's great, Arnold Schwarzenegger, but the whole story and everything, it's a lot of science fiction, a lot of technology that Elon Musk and people are trying to set up right now. And it's just sort of one of those movies where it's, visionary, and that this is the stuff that we're going to be building out. Someone's going to terraform Mars. Someone's going to have the spacecraft. It's just a matter of time. And, so it's really great to see all that science fiction aspect of it. But at the same time, it just all the action and the, Sharon Stone, looking great, really keeping you guessing. Is she really a secret agent, or is she just his loving wife, or, all this stuff. But, a lot of fun. Great movie, really stands up, test of time, and again, I just love seeing all those in-camera effects. A lot of puppeteering and robot mechanic. I don't even know what to call it. Little mechanical masks and stuff. But a lot of fun to watch, and a lot of fun to think about.
Don't forget Mrs. Three Tits.
She's
a marvel of science right there.
Oh my God! Yeah,
and my favorite, the midget hooker.
I knew you'd be calling out the midget.
Venusville.
Yeah, Venusville looks like fun. I would have a field day in that place. Just yeah.
Never make it back from Mars.
That's a great pick. I fucking love that movie. That may end up somewhere on at some point somewhere. Captain number 4, sir.
Is Total Recall. It was number 3, but since we're on the topic, let's make it number 4. Total Recall.
Hell yeah.
And specifically for that question, because there's a lot to like about it, and there's a lot that maybe could be done better. But I think that the whole question about the dream question, is it a dream? I think it's very much like the Deckard question in Blade Runner. Both movies based on prose fiction by Philip K. Dick, of course. But the thing that really gets me, and Ben, I think you know where I'm going with this, is kind of like with the Blade Runner. First, I didn't even know there was a question. So personally, the first time I watched it, I didn't even realize it could be a dream. I was like, well, yep, that happened. So that was a movie. And then someone told me at this rooftop party in Manhattan, not that that matters, I just thought I'd drop that in. He's like, dude, the whole thing was a dream. I was like, no! Which, by the way, side note, people go, oh, I hate movies where it was all a dream. It can be done well, looking at you, Dallas. Anyway, so I went from it's real, not even a question, to it was all a dream, to, or is it? It's vague. And I've come full circle. It absolutely, totally isn't a dream. The whole thing happened. Everything is real, apart from Quaid, who's fake. Yeah, but then people might not agree. So that's that. Like with the Blade Runner, there's a circle of it's definitely a dream. No, it's definitely real. No, it's definitely vague. Listen here, you.
The filmmakers made decisions in the movie where it cannot be. First of all, dream is never really mentioned. It's a memory.
Right. Memory.
Right. I'm predicting.
Is Quaid a replicant?
I've had to defend myself a million times on different panels for this. It's not a dream. The filmmaker.
Yeah, John, stop saying dream.
The filmmaker decided to show characters in the movie not anywhere near Quaid or even on the same planet having discussions and creating plans. Why are we seeing that? If everything we're supposed to be watching in this movie is a memory of his, why are we seeing other characters that he's not there for? He's not
exactly. If this is a dream, where's Quaid?
Yeah, no, it's not. Yeah,
or indeed Hauser.
But so hold on, is Quaid a replicant?
The Fly. So The Fly is definitely science fiction. I think maybe the most science fiction of my picks to some degree. I mean, it's actually doing science. It's doing experiments. It's a scientist, a very, very smart, intelligent scientist. I think teleportation is an area of science. It's still science fiction because we have not achieved that in any way, shape, or form, unless you count email. I don't know. But their approach to a topic that hasn't really been approached in too many other science fiction movies is they keep it very simple, but it really works to bring this teleportation idea to a layman audience and make it really work. And then just a simple mistake, which rewatching this movie, I think he's too smart to have made the mistake that causes his downfall. Even in watching the scene, it's like he would have heard the fly in there because it moves around before it gets zapped or whatever. But, putting that aside, scientists all throughout time have taken risks and sometimes put themselves at risk to achieve their goal. And that's what happens here. And it has horrible, horrible consequences. The most disgusting R-rated earning consequences possible. This is the grossest movie, the most earning, this earns its R rating more than I think anything else I have on my list. It's such a hard movie to sit through, not just because it's super gross, because they just did an amazing job with these effects in 1986. I know, Bobak, you were talking about that era before we got to CGI and what they could do in camera, and when real artists wanted to put something and make it believable on screen. That's what you get right here.
Puking on the hand and it just dissolving.
All of that. Yeah. And what I love about that is
The Fly as a kid. I would turn it off whenever it would come on TV because I couldn't watch it.
It was the last movie I watched.
I still can't watch it.
Yeah.
I almost didn't rewatch it because it's just so hard to watch. And not just because it's grotesque, because it is sad. It is a very tragic story. And I think the reason you buy into the tragedy and how sad this movie is for another scientific idea, chemistry. The chemistry between Gina Davis and Jeff Goldblum is off the charts. They did one movie before this, so I think
Transylvania 65000.
Yeah, I was looking that up because I was like, what had Gina Davis done before this? Had she already become a star in anything else? She did Tootsie, so she already had some big movies. But
didn't they both do Earth Girls Are Easy?
They did that too.
They did three movies together. So this is the middle one. So I think they were already, I don't know if they ever married or if they just were a couple for a long time, but you can see it in this movie that they really care for each other, that they have that witty chemistry when they're, first meeting each other, and as their relationship grows, the relationship between the two of them. And even though pretty quickly it turns sour because he's becoming angry and violent and scary and starting to change, she still cares for him so much, even to the point that she's hugging him when he's already vomiting on things and stuff like that. She's still, able to get close to him and try and care for him. It's really touching, and it makes those final moments when, she has to put him out of his misery, and he's trying to drag her into the pods and stuff. It's all just so tragic and sad.
I don't think I could eat Oreos for years after that scene, dude. Oh
no, those puking scenes. This is the one that earns the R rating more than any others. The filmmaking is top notch all the way through. It creates tension all the way through. It just keeps ramping up what's going to happen to this guy, and just watching his deterioration. It's such a wonderful science fiction story being told by a great filmmaker doing the best job he can do. I was surprised in this rewatch to find out that Cronenberg himself is playing the gynecologist in her dream where she births a larva. You don't see him, but he's got his mask on the whole time, and you can tell that's Cronenberg under that mask. He had to put himself in there somewhere for a very creepy cameo.
As the gynecologist, typecast again.
Yeah, typecast again.
I did not know that. That's funny.
Yeah, just such a wonderful science fiction story approached with a simple concept, executed perfectly, and a very small cast, but they all do a great job. Even the boyfriend or whatever, I think he does a really great job in his role. Where he needs to be utilized throughout the story. It's just wonderful. And again, it earns its R rating in other areas, not just the grotesque stuff, but there's some nudity and some sexual content. And
Gina Davis taking off her stockings, that's R rated immediately.
just some great themes all throughout this movie. I think I wasn't doing my list in any particular order, just kind of talking about various genres and stuff. This would obviously be science fiction horror. But this one might be my favorite of my picks here. So yeah, The Fly.
Is it?
And speaking of like really good practical effects, aside from the fly effects, like when he's arm wrestling that guy and he snaps his arm, like that's a great effect. And sometimes those little ones, where you don't realize that probably takes days to set up that thing and make it work properly. That scene was nuts, where he's starting to get the strength or whatever. Great pick, man. I mean, I love it. It's your favorite of this list, and it's one that you don't ever want to watch.
No.
Yeah. Well, it was a remake.
I like
of an
doing these
earlier
kind of
movie,
shows
right?
because it forces me sometimes to watch something that I've
I've
got another one on this list that I'm like, I don't know how often I'm going to watch it, but I love it. Well, it forced me to rewatch it. So,
and The Fly, that was a remake of an earlier, film. I think, is it based on like an existential book or something? It kind of reminds me of that existential book where the guy turns into like an insect or something.
Oh, that's Franz Kafka.
Yeah, that's Kafka.
Yeah,
I don't think this story is based on Kafka, but it probably borrows from it to some degree.
Yeah, definitely a memorable one.
Essentially a love story. I mean, first and foremost, a love story, but the premise of this movie is a science fiction movie. Though it, like I said, it plays out like an art house movie meets romantic comedy. And I love the two lead characters, Joel and Clementine. I'm going with Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind. I know people don't think of that when they think sci-fi, but it's 100% sci-fi. It's a machine that can, or it's a device, Abby, that can erase memories of a certain person and replace them with different things happening in your life. And the entire movie, from the genius Michel Gondry, is looking into Jim Carrey in his absolute best performance. No question, in my opinion. He's been great in some things. He's so fucking good in this movie, but the way the movie decides to show you the memories being erased, and him actually realizing halfway through it, like at first he's enjoying it. He's like, get rid of that bitch, get rid of it, because basically it's the love of his life turned on him, and he needs to get rid of her. And I'm sure we've all felt that. I've felt heartbreak before, where I'm like, I'm never going to get over this. I need to get this person out of my head. You know, it's happened to me maybe more than once. He's enjoying it at first, but it's such an amazing, just such a wonderful premise to like show us him inside of his memories, watching them fade. And then as he's watching some of his memories with Clementine, going like, I can't do this. I love her so much. And he tries to run away from these memories and stop them from being erased. And he goes into memories ahead of time and grabs Clementine and says, remember me. Don't let this drop out of your memory. And there's so many great, the camera work is just absolutely fantastic. The editing is fantastic. And it's all about love and loss of love and not knowing if you can move on and meet somebody else that's equal or better or whatever. So the science fiction of this movie is basically just the device and what it does. And such a fucking great cast, man. Like Mark Ruffalo and Kirsten Dunst play the people that they're like two stoners, and they've got to, put this thing on his head overnight while the memories are being erased. But they're just getting high and fucking each other, and they're not noticing that he's kind of breaking the pattern of what this is doing. And then it just ends so great. Again, Captain probably hates it because I wouldn't call it ambiguous. I would call it what's the word? A hopeful. There's a hopeful ending where he does, spoilers, Joel does go and find Clementine, not knowing who she is, because he fails at keeping those memories intact, and all of them do get erased, but they find each other again. And they fall in love all over again, from what you can tell how the ending sort of wraps up. But I get kind of choked up when I talk about this movie. I love that relationship. I remember seeing this movie in a theater with a girlfriend at the time, and both of us were just like, man, it's such a beautiful story of love. And yeah, I'm talking more about that stuff than the sci-fi, but the sci-fi is there. And the way the movie is executed with all these camera techniques and POVs and if you watch this movie and you see all the effects in this, and then if I were to tell you that they're all in-camera optics and they are not digital, it'll blow your fucking mind, because it's all Michel Gondry using his talents and his cinematographer to make these optical effects happen without using CGI, and it's gorgeous.
He's brilliant.
Gorgeous. Yeah,
he's brilliant. Well, number 3 for me is the 2017 Blade Runner 2049. And I actually enjoyed Blade Runner 2049 more than the original Blade Runner.
Get out.
Yeah.
Uh-oh.
I know, right? Bombshell. I just like to instigate.
You're not alone in that. You're not alone in that thought. Trust me.
Okay. Well, it was amazing, and I loved so many different things about it. I mean, okay, there would be no Blade Runner 2049 if Blade Runner wasn't amazing as a film, but also as like something that makes you think. Getting back to this whole theme that has been in a couple of different movies, that of do the memories make the person? And Blade Runner 2049, I mean, it's definitely like, it wouldn't be great if Harrison Ford hadn't come back and Edward James Olmos hadn't come back, themselves 30 years later, those characters. But it's just fleshed out that world in such a great way. You know, I just love, like, on the science fiction aspect of it, you know, seeing what this civilization that's all, like, you know, when you look at these like post-apocalyptic, like dystopian things, it's either everything like society collapses and you have, you know, zombies running amok and mutants and cannibals and stuff, you know, like The Road, or, you know, or you've got this type of society that is just continuing to function even though the environment has collapsed. You know, you've had all these wars and all these things, you know, species are gone, people are like leaving the planet, they've got clones, you know, replicating people, you know, science run amok, and it's like it's still functioning, you know. And the Blade Runner world, like, before I was talking about Total Recall and I was wondering if it's still, you know, part of the same universe, but the Blade Runner universe is the same universe as the Aliens universe. Like Ridley Scott, I guess he's talked about it. There's a part in another movie that I'm going to talk about where one of the main characters is directly referring to stuff that's going on in Blade Runner. And so it's part of this world where people have learned how to clone. You know, you've got AI, you've got all this technology, you know, you've got interstellar, you know, travel and like off-world planet, you know, like habitats off-world and stuff. And it's an amazing, you know, place to like just see technologically of how, you know, people use technology to survive all the bad effects of technology, you know. And but really what made Blade Runner incredible and what makes Blade Runner 2049 so good is just dealing with this idea of like, what is reality? It really is an existential. That's why I was asking before about The Fly, you know, like it's an existential story, Blade Runner, where it's just questioning what is it to be human, you know. And you've got like these multiple forms of life. I'm going to call them all life just for fun, you know. In Blade Runner, you've got actual like traditional humans. Then you've got the replicants, who are basically just bioengineered people and they're treated as slaves. And then you've got this third, you know, the Joy character, which is this like AI, like home companion hologram that is the home companion for Ryan Gosling's character, Officer K. I don't know what K stands for, so I'm just calling him Officer Ken, you know. But, you know, you got Officer Ken and his Barbie is this little Joy doll. And are those two in a relationship? You know, like the Joy character, the AI, actually shows a lot more emotion and empathy and humanity than, for example, the Love character, which is like the assassin of the evil corporate, you know, dude, and, you know, who has no emotional depth. She's more of a robot than the AI Joy, and that she's just a killing machine, just a servant, you know. And so it's just like this asking, you know, like, what is it to be human? You know, are the real humans the most human? I mean, are we that human if we're like enslaving the bots and stuff? I don't know. You know, so it's just this one of these things where it really brings up all these questions about what is it to be a human? Do your memories make you, you know, you've got the Ryan Gosling, the Officer Ken character. And for a while, you know, because he knows that he's a replicant and he knows that his memories are implants, but he also knows that they're based off of someone. You know, they end up having a kid. And so for a while, Officer Ken, he's wondering, you know, am I that kid? Because he, as a replicant, he's not following orders. You know, like he's got that great opening scene where Dave Bautista, he's got, you know, what a great cameo for him. And I feel good for him because I think he said that he wants to be more than just comic relief, you know. And so like, you know, Dave Bautista's character, Sapper Morton, he really sets up this whole thing of like, you're a replicant and you're killing replicants, you're turning against your own kind, like, what are you? And just really kind of making that Officer Ken, you know, like question himself. And you know, so there's this whole thing of like, he knows he's fake, but for a while he thinks that maybe because he's going against the program, maybe he's that special child of the replicants. Because now there's this thing, if the replicants can reproduce, then how are they not human? You know, like, how are they any different? And then, you know, is there any kind of justification in enslaving them and stuff? But anyway, so I just love, you know, Blade Runner 2049 for really taking that world of Blade Runner and just running with it, you know, pun unintended, you know, but just really ran with it, fleshed it out, and just, you know, really continued asking those questions and giving even more examples of, you know, with the AI of like, you know, wondering what is it to be human. And so, yeah, I love that. I'm calling Blade Runner 2049 as my number 3 top favorite non-asterisk R-rated sci-fi movie.
Number 3, 12 Monkeys. I had to put in a time travel film. Now, technically speaking, time travel is impossible, so it's not science fiction. It is science fantasy. But there you go. Based on La Jetée, for you hipsters out there, watch the original black and white photo roman. Me and time travel, don't get me. Basically, there's 2 ways of doing time travel correctly: multiple timelines or closed loops. They've gone closed loop, and it's probably one of the neatest examples of time travel that's done correctly. It doesn't detract from the plot, and it's part of the plot where needed. But basically, it's closed loop, and that means the past is fixed. Cole, by going back, can't change anything, and even better, the people sending him back also know that. So they're like, you can't prevent the virus. There's a virus. Just do some research. So I like the fact that it's a closed loop. The past is fixed. He knows he can't change anything. Twist. Again, I'm coming up with the term twist direction, but not once, but twice. It gives you a twist, and it's like, not really. Because given that the past is fixed, then you might be thinking, well, what caused the virus? And at one point in the movie, you're forgiven for thinking that Cole himself caused. You're like, oh no, Cole caused the virus. And then 2 minutes later, no, he didn't. That is so clever for a writer to give you a twist and then go, no, the twist isn't a twist. It didn't happen. And so the last thing that I like about it is, because this keeps coming up, I think for all of us, there is also another twist direction where you get to question whether it's a dream, where they find the message and have a Merry Christmas. And at that point, like, oh no, the whole thing is just a complete paranoid delusion, schizoid embolism. He's not a time traveler at all. He's just a nut bar. And then 2 minutes later, no, it is time travel. So again, twice you get 2 throwaway. Oh no, it's this. Not really. Twist direction. Brilliant.
This is my underrated science fiction pick, which I'm so glad you just talked about 12 Monkeys, because otherwise we'd just be talking about the same movie. So I'm going to get to talk about something that I'm sure no one else has on their list, which is why I have it as my underrated and underseen pick. Let me put up a picture here real fast. It's going to be Cloud Atlas.
Cloud Atlas. Nice.
So this was 2012, I believe. It's a Wachowski brothers, at the time it's the Wachowski siblings.
People.
And
people.
Now it's the Wachowski. What's it called? Is it? I don't know.
They're gonna be the Wachowski aliens next.
And then Tom Tykwer or something. I'm not exactly sure how to say his name, but he's the director of Run Lola Run. So has 3 directors. There's 6 stories told. 2 of them are very specifically science fiction based, but the whole thing has a feel of that you could say kind of plays into science fiction themes. It's largely about reincarnation and ripple effect, and how, one act of kindness or one act of cruelty can ripple throughout time, and how it can have an effect thousands of years in the future. It has a cast that multiple people play multiple roles all throughout the film. Almost every story has each actor playing at least if not a major role, a small role in each of the 6 stories. And that helps play into the reincarnation theme by seeing same actors showing up in each of these different timelines. Specifically, the 2 timelines that I find most interesting are the futuristic timelines. One is a dystopian future in New Seoul. That's actually what you're seeing kind of in the picture there with the girl crossing the bridge. She is a fabricant, which is, kind of like a replicant or clone. That story is the most interesting in my opinion, but they all are interconnected. All 6 stories are interconnected. All throughout, you see themes that happen in one story play right into the next one. You see specific items that show up from the very beginning of the story that are still in play by the time you get to thousands of years in the future. The final story is a story with the Tom Hanks character you can see in the picture there, that takes place after the dystopian future, after what they call the fall, which is a post-apocalyptic future. And as Bobak was talking about, you sometimes get into those post-apocalyptic futures, and you get into cannibals, and that's what that one deals with. This movie is beautifully made. It has one of the best scores of the last 20 years, in my opinion. Not every story works as well. There's a couple that do not work that great. Like, I almost kind of don't pay attention when I rewatch this movie. I don't pay attention to some of the stories as closely because they're not as interesting. And I've seen it enough. I know what's going on. That's just the luxury of loving this movie and being able to kind of pick and choose what I enjoy about it, because it is a 3-hour movie. But as I mentioned, all the actors play different roles in each of the different timelines and each of the different stories. And the way they accomplish that is with some really amazing makeup effects. I don't have that picture loaded. I can't show it, but I had a picture that showed a lot of the different looks that the different actors play throughout the film. And not all the makeup jobs are successful. Some of them really stand out as just caked on makeup, but some of them are amazing where you can't even tell what actor is underneath all the makeup.
I like
so any of you haven't seen this movie,
Hugh Grant makeup. Hugh Grant.
Yeah, Hugh Grant has some that are really great and then some that are really bad. So I don't know if you guys have all seen this one or not. If you have not, it's a strong recommendation on my part. I love, there's also in each of the 6 stories, there's an element of somebody either writing a journal or writing letters to their lover or writing a book. And each thing that has been written inspires the next story. Someone in the next story is reading that and inspires them to do something in their story that inspires the next story. And it takes it all the way to the end where somebody is basically turned into a deity because of, the beliefs that everyone has. That the one story I don't really connect with, or it's kind of played for humor, is this guy, an old Jim Broadbent's character is an old dude, an editor, a literary editor, who is tricked by his brother to be put into an old folks home, and he's trying to escape. And it's played for laughs. It's not the story that I connect with at all. But there's something so pivotal about his story in the future is turned into a really, really cheesy TV movie. And almost like in 2012, I don't know how popular memes were, but there's a moment of his TV movie that is turned into a meme that the fabricants hundreds of years in the future have only access to a few like digital clips of old media. And they watch over and over this one clip of him saying, "I will not be subjected to physical abuse." That inspires the fabricant to revolt and inspires another fabricant to lead an entire revolt that causes the fall of society. So just those interesting little moments all throughout time, or time as it's presented in this movie, little moment can inspire a big change hundreds of years in the future. And I just find that, I don't know if that's truly a science fiction concept, because reincarnation is more, religious or I don't know, spiritual, but there's enough science fiction in this story to merit it. It's the one movie on my list I would say doesn't earn the R rating the way I like to present what we call R-rated movies. But it's got some violence, it's got some gore, it's not
brutality and stuff.
It's got brutality, yeah. It's got very adult themes. It's got nudity. None of it's explicit. None of the gore is too over the top. When a score connects with me, it makes me rewatch a movie many times over. Like I've talked about Tron. I almost wish I could have put Tron on this list, but it's a PG-13 movie. But yeah, Cloud Atlas, love it. Captain, did you say you have seen this?
Yes, no, I've read the book. Now the book's always different, but in this case, even for comparison, I would recommend the book.
They said it's one of the unfilmable books, but I think
that's why the movie kind of failed, because people wouldn't accept it, because the book is so drawn out and long and stuff like that. But I love the movie though.
I remember seeing it with Joanne and walking out saying, "I don't know what I just saw, but I think I loved it." I really had to let it marinate to understand what it all meant. And it's because with 6 stories, certain stories really stood out, and other ones you just felt like, why did we need to spend time with that? But when you rewatch it multiple times and really see how every story does truly connect, it makes it worthwhile. Even the stories that I don't pay as close attention to at this point, which is really only one, the one about the literary editor. The rest of the stories work perfectly.
Well, I'm sure we've all seen this one. This movie is hyper-sexualized. I'm actually surprised that someone hasn't gone through and toyed with this and retooled it to remove a lot of scenes for modern audiences, but it's a Clockwork Orange. This movie makes you feel gross and happy at the same time. It's a masterpiece. It approaches violence and other awful things, and it treats it like a fairy tale.
Ultraviolence.
Yeah, ultraviolence, the R word I won't use. But it treats it all like a fairy tale. All these horrendous acts, from the score to the way it looks, to the way the characters are bouncing around and being bubbly, almost like it's a musical, but it's not. I find this movie fascinating because, Bobak, you were talking about like, what does it mean to be a human being? And I love that Clockwork Orange tackles: is there a such thing as a born evil person? Can you change a person? There's so many discussions in this film about does this treatment, because if you haven't seen A Clockwork Orange, it's about this awful human being who's a murderer, and he's done awful things to women, so much so that they've passed away from it, which is just horrific. And he's arrested and sent to this penitentiary where he lives there for a few years, and you kind of get to know him as like a kid, which is what he is. And you don't realize that at the beginning of the movie. He's just a kid. And then as he's just going through these, I think it's 2 years before he advocates to be a part of this treatment program, get to see him act like a kid. And Malcolm McDowell is just fucking superb in this movie. So goddamn great. And this is a Stanley Kubrick movie, by the way. He never really did anything. I always say that this movie is Doctor Strangelove meets The Shining in a way, because it's so violent and horrific and scary, but it just has this bubbly sense of humor about it. And I would love to get in the mind of all the filmmakers and the writers, like, what were they thinking? Is it satirical? What is it? But going back to what I said that Bobak had brought up, like this, I knew this was going to be the hardest one to talk about because it's such a complex movie. There's moments in this movie where there's doctors going, this person you can't rehabilitate this person. They're born evil, awful people, but can science force them to be good people? And I love the third act of this movie where he's literally paying the price for every one of his crimes, almost so that it's laughable that he ends up in every situation. He just happens to end up at the house of the woman that he assaulted brutally, and she passed away. And there's some great shots in that scene that go back, they were before The Shining, but Kubrick loves to do that under your face crazy look, and he does that in The Shining as well. But I just think the character of this movie, you can't rehabilitate him, and the ending doesn't leave it ambiguous. It lets you know that as soon as, because basically he jumps out a window and knocks that stuff out of his body pretty much, because he's being completely brainwashed, and the brainwashing makes him choke and cough when he wants to do something that would be considered like negative. And it's brilliant the way it plays out, where he goes home and, where's my room? And they're renting it out to some other dude. And that guy's just like, yeah, when your parents don't like you anymore. And then he's just left out for dead pretty much. And it's like, what is the purpose of this treatment if you give it to somebody who's a murderer and then you let them out and everything in their life is gone, so much to the point where they have to resort to either killing themselves, basically just killing themselves in order to like knock this out of them. And that final look that you get from Malcolm McDowell at the end tells you that he's he's pretty much back to who he was. So they just let out somebody that was incarcerated for murder and sexual assault and all that stuff because of their little procedure, their treatment. and it didn't work. It wasn't a permanent effect. There's so many great things about this movie. I mean, it's just the world that like Kubrick creates with, you know, the milk coming out of the boob as like the beer tap. It's just bonkers. And every time I watch it, John, one time at the Big Newport, I saw it on the big screen like years ago, and I just eat this movie up. I love it. It's so creative, so horrific, but do I feel guilty for laughing sometimes? Maybe a little, but it's meant. I don't know. It's kind. I guess it's up for interpretation, but the way it's presented, like a musical, like a fairy tale, it just makes you kind of giggle at all the horrible shit that's going on, because the music has a lot to do with it. It doesn't give you like dramatic, awful music. It gives you this happy, uppity British score while these horrible things are happening. So
lots of Beethoven.
Yeah, lots of Beethoven. Well, that's the jam. Yeah, but. Yeah, I love Clockwork Orange. It, you know, back in the day, it probably would have been even higher, but it lands for number 3 right now. I fucking love it.
But speaking about fucked up societies, my number 2, Mad Max Fury Road. You know,
I was wondering if someone's gonna have Mad Max Fury Road on there.
God, and of course. There wouldn't be no Fury Road if it wasn't for the original Mad Maxes and all that. But I never really watched those, you know. I know of them, but like I've tried to watch them, and I was like, okay, cool, you know, it's a bunch of Australians in the desert, you know, riding motorcycles and stuff. And that's basically what Mad Max Fury Road was, a bunch of Australian stunt people like out in the middle of the desert. But it just was so beautifully done, and I just love the storytelling. One of my least my least favorite tropes, Five Guys in the Woods, where it's just these characters exist. There is no larger world. And I always hate that, you know, like when it's just like, oh, we're just in this cabin for the weekend, or, oh, we're literally in the woods, stuff like that. I can't get into it. And you know, the other thing is where you deliver plot through dialogue. I really don't like it. You know, like if you need to stop and have two characters recap what just happened and what's about to happen, like through dialogue, like, okay, you didn't tell the story well and I'm not paying attention. And so I love how little dialogue there is in Mad Max Fury Road. They show so much about this post-apocalyptic world. You know, society has produced all kinds of horrible things through war and ecocide and stuff. And yet society continues to function, and technology builds up something even greater where we're, you know, flying to the stars and, you know, creating, you know, replicants and aliens. But Mad Max Fury Road is society is rebuilding. It's not that society has survived the fall. It's that you got the cannibals, but then the cannibals became organized, you know? And so it's just showing this like rebuilding where you see like this incredible technologically advanced society has crumbled and then something is then rebuilt. And I love that like in Fury Road, they show you this whole new religion, this whole new like government, this whole new economy. And that's not what any of it's about. This is the biggest story ever told about a U-turn. Like it's all it is like we're driving from point A to point B. Psych, we're going back to point A. And like that's the whole everything. And yet just in the way these people, I mean, Tom Hardy I love Tom Hardy in like so many things, but like his Mad Max is my Mad Max because I never really watched the first ones. And so this is just this guy that's got his demons, you know, he fucked up, he couldn't save whoever. And now you've got all these, you know, the Immortan Joe and all of his little minions and stuff. And I think that Nicholas Hoult as a supporting, you know, actor, I only really know him from like quirky rom-com TV shows like The Great and stuff like that, you know.
He was,
and so it looks
Beast in the X-Men.
Oh, that's right, yeah. You know, but like I didn't even get that was him under all like the makeup with the shaved head and everything, you know. And I've been saving my favorite. Charlize Theron is actually in my number 2 and number 1 top favorite, you know, movies for this right now. And she just like, I can't wait for the new Mad Max to come out. Seeing this world that's been recreated by Immortan Joe and these other factions, the People Eater and the Bullet Farmer and all these characters, and how they're all just sort of like giving some sort of ideology and some sort of structure and like monopolizing the resources and just sort of like setting up this new, city-state economy or whatever. And it's like so dystopic. And yet it borrows from so many, like they're like crying for Valhalla. And, that's just like, the Nordic, the Vikings, the Scandinavians and all that, like bringing back some of that mythology, but repackaging it in this post-apocalyptic world. And it's just all the shots and the colors and everything. I just love visually looking at this movie and just like listening to it, and there's a lot of tension because you never really quite know. Like, I just keep remembering one part where, Max like goes back to, kill the guys that are chasing the girls and they're trying to escape through the, swamplands and stuff. And they're just like, what happens if you don't come back? He's like, then move on, like, don't come looking for me, just go, obviously, duh. They're just like in such a desperate just world where like you kill or die. And everyone just sort of embraces it, and it's such a great fun ride. And I just love how they flesh out this whole world with so little dialogue. It's all just, stunts out in the desert. It really captures what I feel like was the essence of, this is what made Mel Gibson in the first place, that crazy motherfucker. We're just going to get some badass cars, go out to a crazy desert with a bunch of stunts, all these stunt people and just like do stuff. And I don't really know. I'm sure there's like some CGI stuff there, but like they're actually out there doing all those stunts and they have.
Oh, there's a lot of CGI, but yeah.
I'm sure there's plenty of it, but like you got all these like Cirque du Soleil dudes and these poles on vehicles and they're going at speed and it's like they're doing this shit, like they're like actually rolling those cars and stuff. And so it was just a lot of fun to watch because I feel like it really had a lot of authenticity. And I hardly ever rewatch anything, but this is one of those things where like I'm just looking for someone to watch and it pops up. I'm like, yeah, I kind of would like to watch, and I've seen it a few times, and it's just so much fun.
My number 2 is I had 2 Gilliams, so I had to drop Brazil reluctantly. The equally good but unequally seen Zero Theorem, which I describe as Blade Runner in the daytime. So Zero Theorem by Terry Gilliam. Do you know what? There's no robots. Is he a replicant? There's no. Is it a dream? There's no time travel. So it's all about some crazy guy looking for some mathematical equation. 0 must equal 100%. But then again, the company he's working for are also looking for that equation. There's lots of crazy visual stuff happening. It's a very difficult to describe plot, so I'm not going to. But I recommend Zero Theorem. It seems to be one of Terry Gilliam's most underrated films. I like the visuals. I like the progress of the story. So that's my recommendation for number 2.
I've never seen that one. I know what it is, but I just one of the few Gilliam movies I haven't seen. Do you see it, John?
I know I've seen it. I think I might even own it because I try to have all of his films, unless that's one of the few. Because after Tideland, everything he's put out, I kind of didn't really enjoy all that much. Zero Theorem, I think, is Christoph Waltz is the lead.
Yeah.
So yeah, I might have it down on my shelf, but it's something I may have watched once or twice and don't remember much about it.
I mean, speaking now, I'm finding it difficult to sum it up, but being a Terry Gilliam film, there's a lot of sumptuous visuals to get stuck into. So just on the basis of that alone, I'd recommend it. But yeah, it's near future dystopia. Like I say, Blade Runner in the daytime, just as a rough guide.
All right, again, mine's not really in any order, but let's come around full circle to what Ben was just talking about. We got A Clockwork Orange.
Oh!
Kubrick's one of my favorite filmmakers. This is one of my favorite Kubrick movies.
Is this our first double pair? Is this our first pairing?
For the whole list here?
Well, so far.
I guess so. First. Yeah, I think so.
Wow. All right.
Possibly. Well, except for Total Recall, right?
Oh
yeah.
Shit. My bad.
Apart from that.
Memorable.
Yeah.
Sorry.
But yeah, Ben, I mean, everything you said, you laid it out. I'm right there with you. Like, this is a hard movie to kind of talk about. There's There's a lot of ideas and concepts going on. It's funny that the image that I had for this movie is exactly the one that Bobak was saying, like, whether you know the movie or not, you know this image. That's some sci-fi right there. That's some scary ass shit going on. Ben, I mean, you really captured everything that needs to be said about this movie. It has that playfulness in its tone, largely brought on by the music. But it's another movie that I'd say really earns the R rating for this particular list that we're doing.
I want to say it was even X.
Yeah, in fact, that's what I looked up to see what the rating was, and it labeled it as X. And I questioned, does that mean I should put it on the list? But then I looked at on my DVD that I have. It says it's R rated on the DVD, so
it is. They settled at R rating, but it was supposed to get an X.
Yeah. And yeah, it's one of those movies that, like, in 1972, I believe, is when he made it. You know, at that time, I'm sure, it looked very futuristic. To anybody in 1972. At the time I saw it, as a teenager, and seeing it, in today's world of cinema, you might overlook that it's a sci-fi, but it certainly has sci-fi concepts. It's a futuristic looking film, like the world, the architecture and everything that appears in the movie for its day. Like nowadays you look at that and you may not read as much of the sci-fi element out of it, but for its day, it certainly was seen as a science fiction story. I've never read the book, but I'm sure that's labeled as a science fiction story as well. Great performances. I mean, McDowell is amazing in this movie. Just the looks that he's able to give, the way he expresses so much through his eyes all throughout this movie. Just I don't know what else really to say that Ben didn't already say about this movie. So it's a true classic. It's one of Kubrick's best. And I guess, is this the only time that he dipped a toe into science fiction? Kind of seems like it.
Well, aside from
2001.
Oh shit! Yeah, duh. You're right. He kind of invented the genre. On screen. Yes, you're right.
But apart from that,
how do I forget that? Even when there's an image staring me in the face.
Yeah,
I'll not be happy.
Please take that off. Those eyes are freaking me out.
Okay, here we can.
No, I'm kidding. I mean,
how about these eyes? I love Clockwork Orange. It's kind of a weird pick for sci-fi, but clearly it is a sci-fi film. It earns its R rating, and so that's why I got it here on the list.
Nice, John. Air 5. Number 2 for me, I mean, goddamn, everything that needs to be said about this movie, I've said so many times. John knows I've talked about this movie more than any movie I've ever talked about on CinemaGulp, and it's Annihilation. God, I mean, because it was my favorite movie of 2018. We gushed over it in the review. It was my favorite movie the last 5 years. It was my favorite science fiction movie the last 7 years. I mean, I've said so much shit about this movie. It's a masterpiece of science fiction, based off a book. I never read the book. I don't care about the book because the movie is so perfect. Visually stunning, visually creepy as hell. The design of the world and the shimmer, as it's called, which is when you kind of dive into what I think this movie, to me, on my list, is the most science fiction, because it's literally about an alien entity that like crash lands on Earth, but it's not a physical being. It's just an environment, and it's building. This environment just is growing into all these different things, and it's changing the DNA of plants. It's changing the DNA of animals. I mean, it's just fucking heady sci-fi shit. With along with just these gorgeous Alex Garland visuals that are so, I mean, there's people that have never seen this movie or heard of it that know some of the imagery from this movie. The man, bear, pig, as we call it, John. Just the flowers, when your body just like disintegrates, it turns into flowers and spreads. Like, it's fucking just gorgeous stuff, man. A couple of the most haunting and disturbing scenes I think you'll ever see in a movie. Yeah, this was when Alex Garland just at his all-time height as a director. I don't know, especially the route he's going these days. I don't know if he's going to be able to match something like this. You know, the movie he did before this, arguably, someone may have this as their one, Ex Machina. Somebody may even have that as number one. I do like that. I like it a lot. I just think this movie is vastly superior, and I love how Alex Garland uses color to define like his movies. This movie's dark and disturbing, but you think of blues when you think of this movie. You know, you just think of blues. In Ex Machina, you think of orange and red and black. It's an all-female cast where they didn't blab about it being an all-female cast. It just was. They're just great characters, and it was just, that's what it was. It wasn't like, look at all these strong chicks. It was just like, that's the story, you know? When John and I walked out of the movie theater, we looked at each other and we're just like, dude, that's something special. And we keep talking about it all these years later. Again, I've said so much about this movie already. Annihilation, if you haven't seen it, check it out. It was really fucked over by Paramount Studios, who dumped it on a streaming service and didn't even have it playing in other countries until a while after. Luckily, it had like I think it had like a month-long window in the theaters, but it bombed because it just got mishandled by the studio. And I don't know if it really would have caught an audience because it's a little heady, it's a little melodic, and it's not conventional in any way, but it's got brilliant actresses, brilliant director. Annihilation's fucking great. So that's my number 2.
I have dropped a couple of hints. Charlize Theron is in it. It is in the same world as the Aliens Blade Runner, genre, but it is not Aliens. And, first I just want to say that it was really hard for me to think about what's my number 1. And I've probably YouTube videoed more about this than Game of Thrones. And that's like me trying to figure out Game of Thrones backstories because it's so confusing. Like, I've probably spent more times watching the YouTube videos about Game of Thrones than actually watching it. And Prometheus is one. I know. It's this origin tale that it's telling you so much about, like, the engineers and trying to show you. Ben's got to cut himself. He's got to walk.
He can't keep a straight face.
He's just going to like punch a pillow for a while.
I'll promote.
My facial expressions are emoting too hard right now. Continue.
I got a hug for you, Bobak. I got a free hug.
But where's the face hugger come from? Like the little worm mouth thing, that's in Prometheus. Like, it should have came from its own time, but it didn't. Weyland-Yutani Corporation. I mean, you get to see, Weyland himself and like what motivates the guy, and like learning about all and honestly, like Prometheus, but also Covenant. I'm gonna call them like 2 parts of the same movie. But Prometheus for me is the one that I've always gone back to figure out what the fuck is going on. And like with the engineers and the way that they are bioengineering different races, and like the whole Ancient Aliens thing is a big tie-in for this, and that's a lot of fun for me to like watching stuff. But this is the beginning of the alien tale, and Michael Fassbender's character David is like the anti-hero of these 2 movies. Like, David is the one, he's the synthetic, he's the robot, that, and going back to Blade Runner, like the synths, or the replicants, and saying like, what is it to be human? I'm an android, I'm a robot, I'm not exactly human. And then on Earth they've got like the clones and stuff. But the David character is the one that creates the xenomorph, the alien. And so you're kind of watching the whole story of, getting back to my first thing, like the Frankenstein, where you have the mad scientist trying to create life and prove that he is a god, And so you really see that with this synth, Michael Fassbender's character David. And over the course of a couple of movies, and I think there's probably a third one, where I'm sure it's like a trilogy or something like that. but you know he's going to get some comeuppance. But like this is showing you the evolution of the xenomorph, and as much as I love like aliens and stuff, the special effects just aren't really quite there as much, and this really kind of like gives the backstory, and so I just love seeing.
Are you fucking with us?
I'm sorry, I'm clicking off.
Sorry.
No, but I'm trying to instigate here, but I really do love this movie. It's a great origin tale. And so, what are your thoughts, guys?
No, I'm sorry, Bob. I just
don't be sorry.
When you said that the effects weren't there yet, I'm like, some of the most revolutionary effects in the history of movies were done in Aliens.
I'm going to take a page from Captain and say, there's things I liked about Prometheus. It's a good. I'm not gonna say good movie, but there's things I like about it. But it's not canon in my book.
Yes,
not the origin of Alien the way I see it.
I've probably gone back to it and like trying to research it so much, just try to understand the engineers and the whole world of the aliens and how it all got created and stuff. And this one is just like, I think that Covenant has more of a payoff, and like if you want to know how the creature was created. But yeah, I remember watching Covenant, to tell you the truth. And it's a lot of fun. And honestly, Prometheus, it was this thing where it has like the sound score where it's not even like background music. It's more just sort of like there's a lot of movies out there where it's not really music they're playing in the background. It's more of just like audio effects.
Oh, dude, the filmmaking of Prometheus is brilliant.
Gorgeous. I mean, it's gorgeous.
It's a gorgeous movie, which I think Covenant really went backwards on that.
Yeah, Covenant did. Like story-wise and like fleshing out the universe, I think Covenant did more, but I don't remember watching it.
That movie is garbage. It's fucking garbage, but Prometheus is way better than Covenant. Yeah.
What I do appreciate about Prometheus is that it brought the world of Alien and Aliens back to the screen, whereas Alien 3 and Alien 4 kind of feel like they can take place in kind of a different world, or they have different tones a little bit. And Prometheus does a good job of making you feel like you're stepping back. Like, people love, can we spend more time in Middle Earth if the way Peter Jackson presents it on screen. Ridley Scott coming back to this story and being able to kind of put the world of Alien that he helped create back on screen in a very realistic way. I appreciate that, and I love that.
And decided to ruin it.
It's got really
more aliens than
really stupid characters. That's what hurts me.
My number one is somewhat predictably Blade Runner. I had to do it. Blade Runner, but I'm really excited. But the reasons I've got happen to come up during this conversation. So, I mean, first of all, nothing we should take for granted, but direction, perfect. Cinematography, perfect. Acting, perfect. Music, perfect. Suck it, Zimmer. World building, perfect. Just totally a perfect. I mean, it's all subjective, but I love all those things. But just talking with you guys today made me realise there's three heady science fiction concepts in there. Now, we all know there's the question of, but are you really a human? I'm going to get to Deckard in a minute. You can't avoid it. But is a character, any character, a human or a replicant? Like David in Prometheus or Ash in Alien. Is this person a human? Just one of three questions covered in this adult science fiction classic. So, are you a human? We'll get back to that. But also, what you humans were talking, assuming you are humans, memories. You're talking about memories, and it brings back Total Recall and Sunshine of the Plotless Mind, whatever it's called. So, the point is, in those stories, you got the fake memories without the question of whether you're a human. So Blade Runner's combined them. It's got the fake memories with the replicants because they've only got a 4-year lifespan. But what if you had a replicant with a 20-year lifespan? Then you wouldn't have the fake memories. Or what if you had a human with a fake? So, mind blown. Are you a replicant, and do you have fake memories? It's two. And then a third. Wait, there's more. Just a third question. It made me also realise it's just a good basic. Are you a whatever? And you could even take out the science fiction elements. It could be. You could have Blade Runner, but the question could be, are you vaxxed? And suddenly, it's not even, are your memories real? So there's three. Are you a whatever? Are your memories real? And are you a human? Three top science fiction tropes. And I only just realised that today. Brilliant. But wait, there's more. You think I'm about to catch my breath. You're wrong. The central question is Deckard a replicant? And talk about vague. I've studied this for 3 years on YouTube. It got so controversial, I got taken down. The question of is Deckard a replicant is accidentally vague. It's clearly vague. We've all been arguing about it for 42 years. Doomcock and Robert Myberdet still won't talk about it, let alone agree. But also for 42 years, in spite of the lies being told by Critical Drinker, director Ridley Scott's been saying quite clearly he's a fucking skin job. Don't you get it? And then he does 2 more versions saying even more clearly he's a... But then Death of the Author, and that's the circle we get. Yeah, get Scotty here. Oh, he's a human in the book. Fuck the book. So given that the Deckard question, I'm on an eternal loop of it's not meant to be vague, it is vague, he's a skin job, it doesn't matter. The whole point is you shouldn't care, you skin job bigot. But on that topic, I'd like to maybe try and attempt at a new angle. Rachel knows, well, she doesn't know. Rachel's definitely a replicant, but she doesn't know. And then Deckard, when he meets her, he doesn't know that she's a replicant, and then he doesn't know that she doesn't know. How can it not know what it is? Deckard doesn't know if she knows, and then he finds out he does know, but then he knows that he doesn't know whether she knows. So it's a no. And then he finds out he does know. She's definitely a skin job. So when people go, Deckard can't be a skin job, well, he definitely can be a skin job because Rachel is the key. Rachel thinks she's a human. She's got the false memories. She's definitely a skin job, but she definitely thought she was a human, and therefore Rachel can think she's a human, be a skin job. So can you, and so can Deckard. That's it. 42 years later, I realise she's a good starting point because there's no debate. Like, we're all agreed on that, right?
Now, what I still don't get is Deckard a replicant or not?
Oh no! Add 3 hours to the clock, Ben.
Don't ask that.
Okay, so there is still no official answer to that.
Well, there is an official answer, but then you can incite death of the author. But no, this is the whole thing. It's only when people like the Critical Drinker started lying about what Ridley Scott said, I thought, hang on a minute. No, Ridley Scott's been saying very clearly for 42 years that in his estimation, Deckard's a replicant. And to add to that, and pick out, I don't listen to what Ridley Scott says, but Harrison Ford said, who the fuck's listening to the actor?
I don't care.
Blade Runner is the only film I can think of that is accidentally vague. It's meant to be specific, but the director wasn't clear enough. So the movie is vague, but it's not meant to be vague. But it clearly is vague.
I don't care.
No, but my next pick is something that Bobak, based on what he was talking about earlier, would probably not like. And I know Captain may not like it because it has an ambiguous ending. The reason Bobak may not like it is it has a small group of characters confined in one space, and you never really leave that space. And that movie is Cube.
Oh,
whoa!
This is my pick for low-budget science fiction.
Wow, I love that movie, man. That movie's insane.
So if anybody hasn't seen it, it's about a group of people trapped in a maze or in a collection of cubes that all look identical. The only difference is each cube that you enter is a different color. And the genius of this as a low budget film is that they had one set that they just changed the panels in to represent a different color cube. Yet you get the feeling, you really do get the feeling that this is a massive complex of cubes and that these people who are trying to find their way out of this maze that is littered with deadly traps keep moving from cube to cube, and eventually they start figuring out how they can identify certain dangerous rooms to go in. They start using mathematics to figure that out. You find out throughout the story that each person that's been trapped in this cube has a very specific purpose of why they're there, but it takes time and teamwork for them to all start figuring out what their purposes are and how they can help each other solve the maze. It's definitely a very, low budget movie. So there's a couple shots that stand out as not, perfect when it comes to the effects work that they're doing, but it does have a number of graphic kills in it. That's why I had it on this list specifically as earning its R rating. It's a really smart screenplay, in my opinion. It's because of its low budget nature. It's a Canadian film and all the actors are Canadian. They're not really anybody. A few of them have gone on to be in films that you've seen, but for the most part, none of them are big name actors that even this was made in 97. So even at this stage, I haven't seen too many of them go on to have big careers, but I was impressed with their acting at the time. there is some cheesiness that comes out because I don't think they are the greatest actors in the world, but the script and the dialogue that they are meant to deliver, which also Bobak was kind of calling out, if you just got people in a room talking to each other and kind of explaining the next steps or what we've just been through, you do get a lot of that in this movie, but I think it's always pushing the story forward in this confined space where visually you're not getting a lot of variety, but you do have a story that is progressing forward through these characters and the dialogue. And I think the dialogue is really smart to give out the right information at the right time of the story to keep it interesting and keep revealing new things that you didn't know you were going to learn. It's just such a simple concept done, executed in the best way possible. It has me, had me on the edge of my seat all the way to the end. It's super filled with tension. Specific scenes really ramp up the tension, but just knowing these characters are trapped and not knowing anything about, is this on another planet? Is this on Earth? All the questions that they are bringing up, the viewer themselves are wondering the entire time. And I'm not going to spoil the ending, but I feel like it gives you enough to work with, even though it's considered an ambiguous ending. It gives you enough to make your own conclusions of what this could be, but never definitively answering that, but enough to be satisfying. That's the way I've always seen it. They made some sequels, not worth watching. Cube is a mini masterpiece of low-budget science fiction filmmaking.
Dude, you blew my mind. I had fucking no idea you were going to pick Cube. Mine is a movie that changed my life when I saw it. Storytelling structure just blew me away. It's film noir meets space aliens, and it's Dark City.
Oh,
if anyone has ever seen Dark City.
Mm-hmm.
Alex Proyas, best looking movie, best directed movie, best edited movie. He wrote it with David S. Goyer. Came out in 1998, ahead of The Matrix. A lot of people say that The Matrix took a lot of influence from it as far as like The One and all that stuff. This movie's just gorgeous. It's a murder mystery that morphs into a space science fiction mystery and then unveils a master twist that covers all bases, and if you go back to it, you see all the breadcrumbs of what you finally get with the final product. Proyas, his visuals are just jaw-dropping. He did The Crow. The Crow is just a beautiful movie. If you take The Crow and you put it on an isolated sort of space station that aliens study human beings on and continue to rearrange their memories, it's just so it's the most interesting and unique science fiction movie I think I've ever seen in my entire life. It's so bonkers that I'm surprised that like that screenplay was something that people are like, we can turn that into a film, because it really is like Dune level, like psychological, unique world building, just odd things. And again, this goes back to my A Clockwork Orange thing. It's like, can you no matter how many, because this movie is basically aliens, like they're trying to study the behavioral patterns of human beings on a space station that they have. And what do you have to do to get a human being to have a focus in their life where they go towards a driving goal? And Shell Beach is that driving goal. And can somebody find Shell Beach? And Shell Beach is this thing that when you get to it, you basically just fall off the space station. But it's supposed to be this kind of beautiful, sort of euphoric, like paradise. So everyone's sort of in this like New York 1940s sort of setting. And like I said, it plays out so much like a film noir from the beginning, where
always nighttime.
It's always nighttime, yeah. Well, the tuner, yeah. Well, there's a lot of theory that the tuners, because of their eyesight, like they can't do daytime. But the movie just portrays it as like they're only giving you nighttime situations. You know, they're not giving you a day to figure stuff out. They're only giving you an evening to figure stuff out.
The way it plays with, again, what is reality? What are memories? Are those aliens shuffling that scenery around? What is going on?
Well, it's just, I mean, I love Kiefer Sutherland's performance in this as kind of the doctor that's forced to keep going back and putting these needles into these people and rearranging a situation to see how they're gonna react to it this time and that time. There's somebody that can kind of rise past the tuning, and god damn, those scenes in the tuning, like control room, have you like, it's just jaw-dropping gorgeous. Again, a lot of opticals, a lot of in-camera opticals. There's some CGI, but it was you can't really notice it because it's so dodgy, but the way that the tuners would come down, that was all wire work and stuff. Just a fucking perfect film. I think it's my favorite science fiction movie of all time. I just think Dark City is a masterpiece in so many movies. I'm not saying The Matrix took from it, because The Matrix was filming when this movie came out. I get it. But there's a lot of elements and stuff like that in there from it. But Dark City stands on its own as something that nothing is really like it when you get all the reveals of where they are and what they've been doing the whole time. It's extraordinary. And the fact that like Alex Proyas, the director, and David S. Goyer like sat down and wrote this and made it make sense. It's, I mean, that's everything that I and we all love about cinema. And it's just a cinematic orgasm. It's gorgeous to look at. It's smart. You're paying attention to the characters. Nothing is force-fed to you. If anything, you're almost like right up into the end, but it gives you everything. It's not an ambiguous ending. It gives you a clear-cut ending. It doesn't tell you where everybody's going to end up, but it lets you know exactly what's been going on.
It gives you enough information.
Yeah, it gives you enough information, and just the tuning. And I think his name is Louis Swoole. Is that it, John? Rufus Swoole, yeah, as the main character is so great. And Jennifer Connelly plays the kind of femme fatale, damsel in distress. It depends on the situation that they're giving, that they're putting them in. It's a fucking masterpiece. I love Dark City so fucking much. It's so good. Best sci-fi movie, and it happens to be R-rated because there's boobs and blood. But for the most part, it's not there's not a lot of like F-bombs or anything like that. There's just Jennifer Connelly's breasts and lots of blood. So Dark City for me, best R-rated sci-fi movie ever. One of the best sci-fi movies ever.
Yeah!